Welcome everyone to Cornell Cooperative Extension's monthly consumer issues program. My name is Mike Danaher. I'm an assistant attorney general with the New York State Attorney General's office. One of my primary areas of practice involves the prosecution of consumer fraud cases as well as other cases. We refer to it in our office as affirmative justice as compared to the defense side of our office where we defend the state of New York and all its agencies. The affirmative side is where we bring cases, and my responsibilities out of the Binghamton Regional Office is to, among other things, prosecute the affirmative justice type cases as a part of my duties. I also go out and speak to a lot of organizations regarding various consumer-related topics, and I often say that it serves two real purposes, most of which are selfish. It makes my job a lot easier if people are aware of what is going on out there so that they can protect themselves and prevent themselves from being victimized by frauds or scams. It's difficult sometimes in the outright scam, the outright somebody from another country is contacting us by the internet and we're sending them money and it's an outright fraud. It is very difficult to recover money in that case because frequently it's difficult to even find where these people are. So if we're good consumers and we become aware of what things that are going on out there, we might be more apt to say, whoa, wait a second. I'm not going to jump into this right away. I'm going to investigate a little bit further. So that's one of the duties. It makes our job a little bit easier. Another purpose for me going out to speak is to let people know what's going on so that they can then notify us of potential frauds and scams that might be occurring within their community. They do that in several ways. They can call us, let us know, fill out a complaint form so that we'll know and we'll have in writing attached documents of what maybe you received to show us kind of what's going out there. So then I can go out and spread the word, hey, we're seeing this happening now, that happening now. Ithaca area, this kind of thing is happening. A lot of times in the fraud realm, scam calls, I don't know why this is, but scam calls sometimes will come into a particular region or a particular county. Not sure why, but that can happen. Maybe the scam artists are hitting the 607 area code or something. It just seems like all of a sudden we'll start getting a bunch of calls from one particular area about a particular scam. So we can get word out to people, hey, watch out. And also, the other purpose that it serves is for those people who maybe had a problem with the business. But it might not be an outright fraud, but at least it's something where there might have been a miscommunication and the consumer feels like they've been ripped off or haven't gotten what they ordered or whatever it is. We have a service where when people file written complaints with our office, we send those complaints to the business to see if we can get the matter resolved. Frequently, we're able to get it resolved. There might be a reduction in price or somebody gets an additional rebate or they cancel the contract or whatever. And it's a mediation process where we don't take sides. We don't take the consumer sides necessarily. We don't take the business side. We just know that we received a complaint. We send the complaint out to the business, ask the business to respond. Most businesses do respond and are able to work toward trying to resolve the complaint. So we offer that as a service. So if anybody has that problem with a business, they should feel free to contact our office. Contacting our office, we can get them a complaint form or they can download a complaint, or now you can, in this high-tech age, you can actually just file a complaint online with our office, and then we will attempt to try to resolve that. But today's topic is a biggie. Today's topic's a biggie. Next month's topic is a real biggie. And it's a problem that we hear about frequently. Spring is starting to come forth. It's been a little slow this year getting us into the spring, but we're finally starting to see spring hit. And with the start of spring, people are finally thinking about, hey, I've got to do this home improvement contract. I've got to do this home improvement project. I need this done. I need that done. I need something done outside. The weather's getting nice. We can finally get people in to to do work on our house. And there are many problems, I should say problems, many complaints that our office receives every year on issues related to home improvements. It could be because the job didn't get finished, it didn't get finished right, person never showed up, I paid him money, he didn't come, she didn't call me back after I sent the money. There are certain rules and laws in the state of New York that are designed to protect consumers, and frankly, I think it protects contractors and consumers. And we'll get to that in a second. But there are rules out there that are designed to not give anybody a particular advantage, but to try and level the playing field so that everybody in the program going into the project is on the same footing. Because when you think about it, the contractors are the experts. They know what needs to be done. Don't ask me about what needs to be done on a project. I mean, if it doesn't involve super glue and duct tape, I can't do it. I got to hire somebody to do it. And they know about what it is that needs to be done. They know electric, they know plumbing, they know concrete, they know blacktop, they know all that stuff, roofing materials. I don't. We don't. Most consumers do not. So it's usually the bargaining is here. They know how, when I say they, contractors know what their costs are. We don't know what their costs are. We don't go out and do estimates and figure out square footage prices, and we don't even figure out the square footage. So we have to be good consumers because there are laws there designed to try to make a level playing field. The problem sometimes is that we as consumers don't take advantage of those laws that make it more level. We just stick our head in the sand and just say, oh yeah, go ahead, just do whatever. And then all of a sudden, we have a problem. So there are rules associated with it. There is actually in New York State, under the general business law, we have all kinds of laws. But one group of laws is called the general business law. And that's exactly what it is. It's general laws about business. And in there, there's an article, a group of sections that deal with home improvement contracts. And some people don't realize they're out there. But hopefully, after listening today, you'll understand what it is. The home improvement contractor law covers all types of home improvement work. Although I hesitate to do this, I will do it, which is I will read you part of the definition of what a home improvement contract, because it seems to be all-encompassing. A home improvement contract is repairing, remodeling, altering, converting, or modernizing of, or adding to residential property. And it includes, but is not limited to, construction, erection, replacement, or improvement of driveways, swimming pools, siding, insulation, roofing, windows, terraces, patios, landscaping, fences, porches, garages, solar energy systems, flooring, basements, and other improvements of residential property, and all structures or land adjacent to it. So it'd be the detached garage too. It includes the installation of home improvement goods and furnishing of home improvement services. Now, it does not include appliances, and those, they have their own separate warranties that would come with that. It does not include the construction of new homes, but it does include, it really does include the construction of new home. But it's limited to the construction of custom homes. And a custom home is any newly built home on land owned by the homeowner at the time of the contract. So it's not what you would, it would not include what they call a spec home. It's where the contractor owns land, builds a house on spec, and then somebody comes in and buys it. The home improvement contractor doesn't contemplate that, but it does if you own the land and you say, hey, I need a new house built on this land, home improvement contractor law applies. So it's all encompassing, like I mentioned before. It includes driveways and landscaping and swimming pools attached to it. And it applies to all home improvement contractors. And somebody can say, well, you know, I only do this stuff on weekends, and so I'm not really a home improvement contractor because I have my own separate other job. That's not true. A home improvement contractor includes someone who does work, home improvement, this type of work, where the total price of all jobs over 1 year is a whopping sum of $1,500. That doesn't take much to meet the threshold of home improvement contractor. And a home improvement, you're a home improvement contractor if you do this type of work totaling more than $1,500 in a year. This day and age, that number hasn't changed for a really long time. Doesn't take much to get the $1,500. Now, which individual contracts does it apply to? A home improvement contract is work done by a home improvement contractor that is in excess of $500. That is a really low threshold. So if you're a contractor who's done work for more than $1,500 in total over a year, and you come into my house and you do a job for $500, in excess of $500, that's a home improvement contract. If it's a $150 job, it's not a home improvement contract. But again, I don't see too many jobs of less than $500. I've had a bunch of work done at my house, and it's always more than that. It does not include cosmetics, so it doesn't include draperies and carpet work. That's a whole separate thing. Doesn't include appliances. So it really is a very broad definition. Again, it's home improvement contractor. So we mentioned before, it's residential property. It doesn't apply to industrial or commercial properties. At least this provision does not, the home improvement contract law. So here's the first big rule. First rule is all home improvement contracts, those ones that we were talking about, anything above $500 by someone who's done more than $1,500 worth of work in a year. All home improvement contracts must, that's not should be, although should be is also true, must be in writing. Must be in writing. The obligation for doing it in writing is not foisted on the homeowner, it's foisted on the home improvement contractor. So the contractor must do it in writing. If they do not comply with the home improvement contractor law, the penalties can be quite heavy, quite extreme. So, contractors, the law requires you to put a home improvement contract in writing. It just makes good business sense anyway. You really, I can't tell you the number of times that our office has received complaints from consumers saying, he didn't do this, she didn't do that, sort of thing. And unfortunately, in some instances, they didn't do a written contract, or if the contract, which terms of which we'll go through in a minute, the contract didn't comply with what's required to be in the contract. And how easy would it have been to list everything that was going to be done, which the law requires, but it lists everything done, so that when the consumer complains, the homeowner complains, he didn't do this, to be able to pull out the contract and say, right here on line 15, it says, this is all I'm doing. I wasn't supposed to do what the homeowner is complaining that I didn't do. The contract didn't call for it. And we have had instances where we've gotten those complaints in. We sent the complaint to the contractor. Contractor responds saying, here's a copy of the contract, and one, this was all I was supposed to do. Or two, there's an exclusion in the written contract that said I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. And the homeowner is complaining, he didn't do X, Y, and Z. And the contractor says, right, I wasn't supposed to. Here's the contract. But the problem comes in when no mention is made of X, Y, or Z, or there was really kind of a broad definition of what the work that was going to be done, and it's really unclear what they were supposed to do. So much easier to put in exactly what's going to be done, and then when the complaint comes in, it's very easy to say, hey, he or she wasn't supposed to do that as part of the contract. So the penalties can be severe. It just makes good business sense to put it in writing, not to mention the fact the law requires it. It's got to be in writing. Okay. It doesn't just protect the homeowner. It also protects the contractor. This also includes, this is another thing. It's also very important. It doesn't take much time, so do it, which is change orders. If there's going to be a change to the written contract, put it in writing. I'll tell you the classic situation. Classic situation. They have a nice contract. Everything's going to, they decided on what is all going to be done. All of a sudden, the homeowner goes, you know, we've been thinking about this, and we'd really like to change this part of it, the stairwell. I want to change it, you know, to put it at a different angle. Contractor says, no problem. I can take care of that. We're not at that stage yet, so boom, we'll get it taken care of. So then the project's at the end, and the contractor presents a bill that's $1,500 higher than what the contract price was. And the homeowner goes, whoa, wait a second. I'm tapped out. I don't have this extra $1,500. And the contractor said, well, you changed the stairwell. And I had to do more framing. I had to do this. It costs an extra $1,500. I mean, you couldn't expect us to do this stuff for free. I mean, it's much more elaborate now than it was before. And the homeowners, well, I never agreed to pay anything more. I just asked you to do that. And the contractor says, but you didn't expect us to do that for free. And they say, yeah, I thought that we could just do that, kind of throw it in as an extra sort of. Avoid that problem. The contractor could very easily say, yeah, absolutely, we can change the angle of that stairwell, look really nice that way. You know, it's going to be some extra framing. So let's sign this change order where it's going to be written down, change the extra $1,500. At that point, the homeowner go, I'm sorry, let's go back to the way it was. I can't afford the extra $1,500. Or the homeowner go, gotcha, cool, good, and sign, and they're good. Everybody knows what's going on. So when I say get it in writing, get the contract in writing, get it in change orders in writing, everybody's life is going to be so much easier when that's the case. And as homeowners, expect any change you make to that contract, just assume it's going to cost you more money. So when you suggest that change, say, hey, how about if we do this? How much extra is it going to cost me? Get it? Can we get that in writing? Let's get it in writing. And if the contractor said, yeah, we'll take care of it at the end. Say, no, you know, I'm really anal about these sorts of things. How about if I write, you know, changing the stairwell, da-da-da. Is there going to be an extra charge? Well, I don't really know yet. Okay, well, let's not do it yet until we know so that we can figure that out. Everybody knows what's going on, and it's much better at the end. Here are the things that are absolutely required in the written contract under the law. Name, address, and telephone number of the contractor. I will tell you, I've been doing this a really, really long time. We get every year complaints from people who had somebody knock on their door to redo their driveway or something. And they attempt to get something in writing, and the written agreement doesn't have the name, address, and telephone number of the contractor. Make sure that's in there. The law requires it. Contractors, you have to put it in there. It's required. You need to include the date when the work will start and the date when it will be substantially completed. There's always things that can happen that can delay substantial completion in, you know, some bad weather or some other things. But it should have a date when substantial work will be completed. I see that all the time in contracts. It doesn't have the start date. It doesn't have the substantial completion date. It's required. It's a violation of law if you don't include it. Make sure you include it. You got to do your best job in trying to estimate when it's going to be started. I get all these complaints all the time that says, we signed the contract in May and it's September and he's still not here yet. And then the contractor says, well, I told him I had all these jobs lined up and I would get to him as soon as I got done with this job. No good. You have to put in the contract when the job is going to be started and when it will be substantially completed. If you get to the point where the contractor gets to the point where he or she can't get started because they're tied up with something else or whatever, they should go back to the homeowner and say, I can't get this started. And the homeowner should have that option to say, okay, when can you start? And he says, I can't start for 2 months. Okay, let's cancel the contract. I'll get somebody else to do it. At least that way, then no harm, no foul. The money can go back to the homeowner, any deposits that are paid, and the homeowner can move on. The problem is, and again, something that we'll get to in a few minutes, that money's been paid and maybe product has been purchased or things like that, and it's still not started yet, and it's a whole big problem. So it should be all money not used, not applied to this job, needs to be held in escrow. I'll talk to that in a second, held in trust. And that if we get to the start date and it can't be done, money can go back and then everybody washes their hands and everybody moves on. So start date and substantial completion date must be in the contract. A description of the work, including the materials that will be provided, must be included as well. Notice to the homeowner of a possible lien law if it is not paid. Meaning, we hear about mechanics liens. They filed a lien against my house because I didn't pay them. There has to be a notice in the written contract that to the homeowner, if you do not pay me, I have the right to file a lien against your house. So it must be in there. If payments are contemplated to be made over a period of time, we refer to it as a draw schedule, meaning that money will be drawn by the contractor over a period of time, then the draw schedule must be listed in the contract. And we will typically see a small percentage paid down if it's going to be one that's going to be over a period of time. Most contractors, if it's a day job or a couple of days job, maybe a week job, they'll just say, okay, just pay me at the end, which is fine. But if it's going to be a payment over a period of time, like an addition to the house, usually it's going to be over several months, and contractors have to pay their labor, they have to pay their materials, these sorts of things. They need to have that schedule, X percent when the roof is on or it's fully enclosed, X percent when this is done, final payment after a certificate of occupancy has been issued by the municipal code office. That's kind of how it works, but it has to be put forth in the contract. Here's another thing. This is one of the rare circumstances in contracts that requires the contractor to give the homeowner 3 business days to cancel. They should have, the law requires 3 business days to cancel. And what is that 3 business days to cancel? And that is from the time the parties enter into the contract and the contract provides that you have 3 business days to cancel the contract, that it would start when the parties execute the contract and it's 72 hours later, which is 3 days. If contractors, warning, 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 if you do not put in the notice that the homeowner has 3 business days to cancel, the 3 business days never starts. So at some point in time in the future, After the job is almost completely finished, the homeowner can say, oh, I cancel. And then the contractor's like, what? You canceled? It's almost done. I didn't realize I had 3 business days to cancel because you never gave me notice. I cancel. And then the contractor's got a big heap of trouble because then he has to sue to get paid. And the suing is not based on the contract price. It's based on the reasonable and customary value of what the services were that were provided. It's a Latin term called quantum meruit. It's value of goods and services provided. You have to show, maybe that's the contract price, maybe not. They have to show what it is. There are some places, not in our area, not in Ithaca, not in most of the upstate. There are some places that have contractor laws in their municipality that have a provision that say, unless you have a contractor, you may not get paid. You are not entitled to any payment for the job. So if they don't get it in writing and that new deck that just got put on the house, it's free. So there's really incentive down in certain areas, Long Island, New York City, where they have those requirements, not up here. But up here, if you don't give the 3 business days to cancel, then the 3 days never starts. And then the homeowner at some point in time, there's an argument or an objection about the contract. They say, I'm canceling. Then there's a whole host of problems. So make sure it's in the contract. Also, until that 3 days runs, of which the homeowner was given notice, until those 3 days have run, the homeowner has every right to cancel. So, again, contractors, be aware that if you start the job right away and it's day 2 and you've substantially gone along in doing everything, and then the homeowner cancels, you've got that same problem again, trying to figure out how much you're owed and getting paid and that sort of thing. Wait until the 3 days runs. And if the homeowner has not canceled, then you can go ahead and the 3 days has expired. The only caveat is the 3 days can be waived in a very limited circumstance. And that's where the work that's being done is an emergency, and 2, that the owner puts in his or her own handwriting the nature of the emergency and the waiver of the 3 days. Classic example, it's January 3rd and the furnace goes. It's going to be more than $500 to fix, of course. But we can't wait 3 days. We're freezing. We can't wait. So if the homeowner puts in writing, I waive it because it's January 3rd, it's freezing outside, I need a new furnace, I'm willing to waive the 3 days to cancel, sign John, homeowner. Then it can be waived. I have seen circumstances where contractors have tried to get around it by putting in every one of their contracts, this is an emergency, and then have the homeowner sign it. It has to be a legitimate emergency, and it has to be detailed why, according to the homeowner. It's an emergency because I want it done. Not good. It has to be a legitimate emergency. So make sure contractors get the 3-day right to cancel in there. Now, those are the things that are required to be put in the contract. And again, it makes so much sense to do that. Make sure the homeowner is given a copy of that contract so that everybody knows that they're working off the same thing. Now we get into what happens with the contract. Here's an important part. Many times, home improvement contracts require for the payment of some type of a deposit. Contractors must understand that any money received in advance for work to be performed later are considered to be trust funds. You contractors, you probably never thought about this when you got involved in the business. You're a trustee. Trustee, oh my gosh, I thought I was a brick and mortar guy. You are a trustee. You are financially responsible. You have a fiduciary duty as a trustee to hold any funds in advance of work to be performed as a trust. You must treat the money as if it belongs to the owner, because it does. You may put it in your account. We'll talk about accounts in a second. But it still belongs to the owner until you do work or buy materials for which those funds can be used. It's not your money, so it may not be commingled, meaning put together, with your other funds. What you need to do, contractors, you need to have at least 2 bank accounts. One account is your general account, of which you put funds for which you did work and paid materials that you can pay out of, pay employees, all that stuff out of your general account. You need a separate account, which is a trust fund account, in which you only deposit money that were paid in advance by the homeowners. Just put homeowner money in that account. You don't need a separate account for every job you're working on, although there's nothing that prevents that. But you at least need one account that only payments that are made in advance goes into. And you are required to keep a record of whose money goes into that account and how much, and whose money comes out of that account and for what. My suggestion, deposits go into the trust account, and then when you have an invoice to pay for that job and that job only, you take money out of that trust account and put it in your general account and then pay the bill. You take money out of that account, put it in your general account, and pay the employees. And keep a record of a ledger of whose money goes in and whose money goes out into the general account. If you overdraw that trust account, that by definition means you're using somebody else's money for somebody else's job. And be warning, pay attention. It is a crime. You can be arrested and you can be prosecuted for misappropriating trust funds. We see it happen all the time. Keep that money separate and then only use it for that job. I will tell you the reasoning for that law, that whole trust fund law, was there were way too many instances where contractors were taking deposits for a new job, but they haven't finished the previous job, and they didn't have the money because they had paid employees along the way, they paid themselves, they had to pay groceries. They ran out of money, and they weren't going to get their final payment from this job until they finished, but they had to finish it first. Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll use the deposit from the second job. I'll finish up this one, and then I'll get the final payment from this person, and I'll just replenish that account. That's a felony. Don't do it. Keep the money separate, or you can be prosecuted for it. Here's the rules with those trust funds. Any payments received prior to substantial completion of the job or substantial work that is paid with this money must be deposited within 5 days. So a homeowner hands a contractor the money. Within 5 days, they've got to put it in a New York financial institution, or a financial institution that has branches in New York. It remains the property of the homeowner, And unless the contract says, and this is a good thing to put in your contracts as well, unless the contract includes the name of the bank and that information of where the money is going to be deposited is given to the homeowner in the contract itself, if it isn't in the contract, within 10 days of the deposit, so in essence, if you're counting out days, within 15 days of the day that the homeowner pays the contractor, so the contractor has 5 days to put it in the account, and then within 10 days of the deposit, the contractor must notify the homeowner the bank where the money was deposited. Got it? It behooves every contractor, put it in the contract where you're depositing the money, then you save the whole hassle of having to notify them later. If the contractor, sometimes contractors, and I will tell you, the vast majority are good, solid, hardworking, really good contractors. We're not talking to them. We're talking to the other ones. But anyway, if the contractor does not keep adequate records, and they're worried about, I got to get this addition on. That's all I'm worried about. I'm not worried, the numbers will work themselves out. However, you got to be meticulous. If you do not maintain records, you are presumed to have mishandled the money. Presumed. There's a presumption. You don't keep records, we presume that you mishandled the money. Avoid all that. Keep records. Put it in the account, and everything will be fine. Violations of the home improvement contractor law. They can be quite severe. Their fines can be up to $2,500 per contract. Even a technical violation. Let's say the contractor did everything great. Job was good, but he messed up on his contract. He didn't have a 3-day right to cancel. He didn't put down his name and address that is required. It's $100 civil penalty just for technical violations. It's in addition to any restitution that might be owed to a consumer. And our office, if we can establish that a contractor is engaged in repeated and persistent illegal conduct, in addition to fraudulent conduct, if they're in illegal, which means a violation of law, which means a violation of the technical requirements of the home improvement contractor law, they can be subject to being sued by our office on behalf of the people of the state of New York, which would include an injunction against them, meaning as much as prohibiting them from engaging in that type of work, to civil penalties and costs associated with it, and restitution to consumers. The law allows for us to be able to do that. Understand, homeowners, that this area of the law is a prime area for scam artists. Some words of advice, some things to take into account. 1, make sure your contract's in writing. That's an easy tip-off if the contractor's not willing to put it in writing. Don't pay unreasonable advance fees. If the contractor is looking for 100% of the contract up front before any work is done, run the other way. Not to disparage contractors, but my experience has been the contractor's motivation for completing the job is in inverse proportion to how much he or she has been paid at the beginning. The less at the beginning, the more incentive to get the job done so they can get paid in full. Paid all up front, less incentive to come in and actually do what needs to be done. Not to badmouth anybody or anything, but that's just the nature of the beast. So, don't pay unreasonable advance fees up front. Negotiate a draw schedule based on completion stages. And never, homeowners, let the contractor get ahead of you. In other words, if the first draw is when 10% of the job is completed, don't agree to 50% of the payment when only 10% of the work is done. Agree to at most 10%, if not 5%. And when the job's 50% done, agree to pay 40% of the job. They're entitled to get paid. Legitimate contractors, they got people to pay. They got mouths to feed. They're entitled to be paid. But they're not entitled to be overpaid. So take that into account. Another thing, be a good consumer. Get estimates. Get multiple estimates with specific materials and services. Know what you want done before the contract comes in, and only get the work done that you need to have done. Get references from other jobs. Follow up on those references. Call the house down the street who had work done by this or somebody else in town. What was your experience? Did they show up when they said they were going to show up? Did they get done when they were done? Were there any problems with the job? Follow up. Be a good consumer. If they say, this is a trick, so I'm going to fill you in. If they say they're fully insured, your response to that is, what do you mean? What are you fully insured for? Sometimes they mean we're insured for liability, which means if somebody gets hurt on the job I'm working on, I've got insurance for that. What about workers' comp? Are they insured for their employees? Are they insured? Are they bonded? Meaning, are they insured that if you don't finish this job, there's security that will pay me to get somebody to finish the job? What does this fully insured mean? And if what you want is them to be insured on your job, meaning if they don't complete the job or they do a bad job that is not, let's say, code compliant, you can't even get a certificate of occupancy for it, do they have an insurance policy for that? And what you would do in order to protect yourself is, I want to see your insurance policy, and I want to be named as an additional insured on that policy. You can be named as an additional insured on a job. I can tell you, on commercial contracts, it happens all the time. The owner of that operation wants to make sure that there is coverage in case the contractor messes up. I want to see the binder, it's called a binder, it's a one-page thing, that I'm covered in case you mess up. I want to see my name at the bottom of that. And I will tell you, call the insurance company. When you get a copy of that binder, call the insurance company. Say, hey, I got this binder. I'm named as an additional insured. I want to make sure. Has it been paid? Is the insurance covered? Is it all paid? Is it all in effect? Are we good? And they could say, yeah, you're good. Then you're happy. But understand, because somebody tells you they're fully insured, that could mean a whole host of different things. Make sure what that term means. If a license is required, now, a general home improvement contractor, there is not licensing up in most places upstate New York. However, certain trades are required to have municipal licenses, like plumbing and electric. They need to be licensed. Make sure they are, so that their job would be a legitimate job. You get an unlicensed contractor to do the work, then you could run into problems. Any guarantees that the contractor makes, make sure it's in writing. Put the guarantees in writing. Here's the other thing, one thing that you need to consider. Make sure the contract provides for, if it is required, who gets the building permit. You should check as a homeowner, it doesn't take long, call your local code office, your municipal code office, and say, this is the type of job I'm having done. Do I need a building permit for it? Some jobs don't, like if you're putting you're doing a second roof on the house, they're putting an overlay. You may not, it depends on the municipality. If you're doing an addition, you usually need to have a building permit. Make sure you have in the contract who's getting that, usually the contractor, because they know what's being done. Second of all, before the work gets completed, make sure you have a copy of the building permit. A lot of instances, the contractor has to post the building permit on the job site. You can call your code enforcement office, say, look, my contractor is doing this addition on the house. You're supposed to get a building permit. I'm just checking. Is there a permit in place? If there's not, you make sure that contractor doesn't do any work until the permit is obtained. If you have a problem with a contractor, feel free to contact my office. Again, as at the outset when we talked about what our office does, even if everything's on the up and up and you have a problem with the contractor and there's some problems with the work not being completed or not being completed right, you can file a complaint with our office. Our office cannot represent individuals, so we can't represent you, but we can try to resolve your complaint by sending the complaint to the business and getting a response. If the response from the business is unsatisfactory, we can't go ahead and sue them for you. We don't have jurisdiction to do that. What we would say to you is you'd have to go out and find an attorney, or if it's a really small thing, you could go to small claims court and get that, try and sue that case. But you can at least file a complaint with our office, because we keep a record of every complaint that gets filed with our office. And this may not be the first complaint that we've received. Our jurisdiction kicks in where we can establish a pattern or practice of repeated or persistent illegal, fraudulent, or deceptive conduct. So if we've got a contractor out there that's going and doing this repeatedly, that does give us jurisdiction to go out, not to sue on your behalf, but to sue on behalf of the people of the state of New York, that this contractor has been engaged in repeated or persistent illegal, fraudulent, or deceptive practices. Again, if you ever have a problem with home improvement contracts or any contract that you might have with a business where there's a consumer and a business, you are free to contact our office and file a complaint, which we would attempt to mediate. Or at the very least, you can call us and we can maybe give you a little guidance as to how you might want to handle it. Either call us, or you might have to call a private attorney, or contact your local code office, or whatever it is. If anybody has any questions related to home improvement contracts or problems with home improvement contracts, I'd be glad to answer that for you. If not, thank you very much for attending our session here. For those of you out in TV land, good seeing you. Come, join us. We're here on the second Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. at Cornell Cooperative Extension on Willow Avenue here in Ithaca. We have some people here today. We'd love to see people join us. And come on down. The first 45 minutes or hour or so of the program, we tape, talking about various consumer topics throughout the course of the year. But I'm here for a while after the session, and if you have your own individual problem that you might want to speak about, I'd be glad to address that with you, maybe give you some guidance on how you might be able to handle that situation. So I'm here. Again, the second Thursday of every month. Next month's topic is another really big one based on the number of complaints our office gets. Next month involves landlord-tenant issues, how to be a good tenant, or otherwise known as the rights and responsibilities of landlords and tenants. So we hope to see you then. That's usually a big crowd. So come one, come all. Get here early. It usually fills up for that one. So we hope we will see you then. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you.